They all scoffed at her words, dismissing them as nothing more than empty threats. "Since we're done here, I'm out of this stinking place," Bucci sneered before striding out. One by one, they followed, leaving Angela alone with Emeka, who lingered a moment longer. Still bitter over the scandal, he glared at her with pure disgust. "I could have taken care of you, but you chose strangers over me. What a filthy whore you are," he spat before turning on his heels and walking away. As soon as she was alone, Angela shut her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She felt cursed, trapped in an endless cycle of suffering. "Why, God? Why did you let my children be born into such misery? Are you still crying?" Auntie Jennifer's voice broke through the silence as she entered the room. She had seen Angela's in-laws leaving and knew something was wrong. "Auntie, it's so hard. Everything is so hard that I feel like dying," Angela sobbed, burying her face in her hands. Ma'am Jennifer didn't say a word. She just pulled her into a tight, comforting hug. "I've told you to stop talking like that. You still have your girls. And believe me, they are your biggest blessings." Angela shook her head, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "But how do I take care of them? My husband's family and that so-called family lawyer have taken everything from me. I have nothing, Auntie. Nothing." She let out a bitter laugh. "And I have only my husband to blame for this. He never told me anything about his properties. I had no idea what I was even fighting for." "What do you mean? I thought the lawyer said your husband didn't leave a will. So how come there's suddenly a will now?" Aunt Jennifer asked, confusion etched on her face. Angela shook her head, frustration and exhaustion weighing her down. "I don't know, Auntie. All I know is that they must have bribed our lawyer. I should have known better than to trust a greedy man like Mr. Aamide." "But you can sue them, right?" Ma'am Jennifer asked after a brief silence. Angela let out a bitter laugh. "With what evidence? I've searched everywhere at home, and I couldn't find any copy of my husband's will or any of his documents. I can't even access his shop anymore." As they spoke, Angela's phone rang. Seeing an unfamiliar number, she hesitated for a moment before answering and putting it on speaker. A deep male voice came through the receiver. "Hello, am I speaking with Angela, Mr. James's wife?" Angela sniffed, trying to compose herself. "Yes. Who is this, please?" "Ma'am, we're calling from First Bank PLC. Are you aware that your husband took out a loan of 100 million naira? Unfortunately, the funds in his account are insufficient to repay the debt. As a result, we will be selling off his collateral, his house and cars, to recover the money. Any remaining balance after the debt is settled will be handed over to you." Angela felt like the ground had just been ripped from beneath her feet. She had heard enough bad news for one day. Her breath hitched, her vision blurred, and she just stared blankly at the phone, unable to form a single word. "Hello? Ma'am? Can you hear me?" The voice on the other end asked again. Auntie Jennifer had to tap her gently, bringing her back to reality. Angela swallowed hard before finally finding her voice. "My husband took a loan?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes, ma'am. We'll be coming next week with the evidence and his signed documents. Please do well to vacate the property within a week or find a way to repay the loan." And just like that, the line went dead. Angela stared blankly at her phone, her hands trembling. "Auntie, did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice laced with disbelief. "They said my husband took a loan. James took a loan. And the collateral just happens to be the same house and cars his family graciously willed to me. I've been fooled. Completely fooled." She let out a hollow laugh, one that quickly escalated into hysterical laughter. Tears streamed down her face as she kept repeating the words, her voice growing more unsteady. Fearing that Angela was on the verge of a breakdown, Auntie Jennifer quickly grabbed a syringe and administered a mild sedative. Within moments, Angela's body relaxed, her laughter fading into silence as she drifted into a deep sleep. Jennifer sighed, wiping a tear from her own eye as she whispered, "You've suffered too much, my dear." She truly felt a deep sense of pity for the young woman. In all her years, she had never encountered someone with so much misfortune. At that moment, a firm resolution settled within her. She vowed to do everything in her power to help Angela and her children, no matter what it took. 1 week later, with nowhere else to go after the bank confiscated their house and her husband's car, Angela finally accepted Aunt Jennifer's help and moved in with the elderly woman along with her 2 daughters. Aunt Jennifer lived in a modest room and parlor self-contained in a ghetto area. She had 2 children, but they were both married and lived outside Lagos, leaving her alone with her little puppy. Her home was simple and unassuming, fitting for an elderly woman. Though she didn't earn much, it was enough to sustain her. Angela didn't feel out of place in Aunt Jennifer's home since she had grown up in the ghetto herself. However, her 2 daughters, who had known nothing but wealth since birth, struggled to adjust to the confined space. The entire house, both the parlor and bedroom combined, was smaller than their former room. "You're all welcome to my humble abode," Aunt Jennifer said, with a warm smile as she ushered them inside. "Thank you, Auntie. I really don't know how to repay you for your kindness toward me and my family since my husband's death," Angela said gratefully. The elderly woman had been a pillar of support for her, despite the fact that they weren't even related. "Come on, it's nothing," Aunt Jennifer said with a gentle smile. "I spend most of my days at the hospital anyway, so my house is practically empty. My puppy always gets bored, but with the girls around, it'll be more lively." Chiara looked around the small but neatly furnished parlor with displeasure, her little face scrunched up in dissatisfaction. She turned to her mother and whined, "Mommy, I don't like this place. It's too stuffy for me. I want to go back home." She began to cry, causing Angela to feel slightly embarrassed. "Shh." Angela hushed her, raising a hand to smack her into silence, but Aunt Jennifer gently stopped her with a calm smile. "Don't beat her," she said, squatting down to Chiara's level. She tenderly wiped the girl's tears and spoke in a soothing voice. "Baby, listen to me. You, your sister, and your mother won't be here for long. Some bad people are trying to harm you girls, and your mother brought you here to keep you safe. Once the police catch the bad people, it'll be safe for you to return to your big house, okay?" Ciara sniffled and nodded, her little shoulders relaxing. "Okay. You're hungry, right?" Aunt Jennifer asked. Ciara nodded again, and the elderly woman chuckled, patting her gently on the head. "What a sweet girl. Auntie will make a quick lunch for you, all right?" "Auntie, I'm so sorry about that," Angela began, but the elderly woman waved her off with a warm smile. "Nah, don't worry about it. I completely understand. If I were in her shoes, I wouldn't want to live here either," Aunt Jennifer chuckled. She gestured toward a door and added, "You can keep your bags in that room while I prepare some lunch. My work shift starts at 7 and runs until morning, so you and your children can use the bed. I just changed the bed sheet this morning." With that, she headed into the kitchen to fix them a quick meal. Just then, a small hairy puppy darted out of the room and ran toward Winnie. She squatted down with a smile and picked him up, her eyes lighting up with delight. Ciara quickly joined her, and in an instant, the girls forgot all about their worries, giggling as they played with the excited puppy, who was just as thrilled to meet new friends. In the evening time, Aunt Jennifer was already dressed for work when she called Angela into the sitting room. Since you'll be staying here for a while, I figured you might need a job. Do you have any skills or a job in mind? Angela nodded. I actually learned hairdressing, so tomorrow, after taking my kids to school, I plan to look around for anyone in need of a hairstylist. Okay, Aunt Jennifer said thoughtfully. I usually get my hair done at a popular salon, and the owner happens to be a close relative of mine. After my shift tomorrow, I'll stop by and ask if she needs a hairstylist. Really? That would be awesome! Angela beamed with excitement, clasping her hands together in gratitude. Thank you so much, Auntie Jennifer. The elderly woman chuckled and waved her off. It's good to finally see you smile. I've seen you cry so much that I thought you would have run out of tears by now, she teased lightly. Angela let out a soft chuckle. I'm sorry about that. I promise to smile more. After all, life must go on. That's the spirit, Aunt Jennifer said with an approving nod. She glanced at the clock and quickly stood up. I need to leave now, or I'll be late for my shift. Angela followed her toward the door. Please be careful on your way out, she called after her. Aunt Jennifer nodded and waved goodbye before getting into her old Toyota Camry and driving off. Mummy? Angela turned to see her older daughter standing in the doorway, looking at her with a calm yet sad expression. She locked the door, walked over, and picked her up, carrying her to the sofa in the sitting room. Baby, why aren't you sleeping? She asked gently. I miss Daddy, Winnie muttered, hugging her mother tightly. Angela's heart clenched at her daughter's words. Winnie had been so quiet, not wanting to add to her mother's burdens, but in the end, she was still just a child, one who desperately missed her father. Angela heaved a deep sigh and hugged her daughter tightly. I miss him too, baby. I really do. Mother and child remained in silence for a few minutes, simply holding on to each other, before Winnie spoke again. Mommy, are you going to change our school now that we're no longer living in the estate? Angela's heart clenched at the question. It was difficult to answer, but she knew she had to. Right now, she had no money, and their school fees were exorbitant. However, her late husband had always paid for the entire year in advance, which meant she wouldn't have to worry about it until the next session. By then, she was determined to recover everything that had been stolen from her, her husband's properties, investments, and all that his family had unjustly taken. They might think she had given up, but they were very wrong. She had decided to lay low for now, gathering both money and strength to fight when the time was right. Kissing her daughter's forehead gently, Angela reassured her, No, baby, Mommy won't transfer you to another school. Just endure it for a little while, okay? Our stay here won't be long. Mommy will bring us back to our house very soon. With the address Auntie Jennifer gave her, Angela headed to the hair salon after dropping her kids off at school. Since Auntie Jennifer wasn't going anywhere that morning, she let Angela borrow her car to make the trip easier. When Angela arrived, the salon was already bustling with customers. Just as Auntie Jennifer had described, it was an upscale place. Angela parked the car, took a deep breath, and stepped out, her plain black gown flowing as she made her way inside. Hello, dear. What can I do for you? A uniformed lady greeted her as soon as she walked in. I'm here to look for a job. My auntie directed me here. She said the owner is looking for a hairstylist. Angela replied calmly. The lady stared at her for a moment before nodding. All right, come in and have a seat. My ma'am will be here soon. As she spoke, a well-dressed, fair-skinned woman entered the shop. Both the lady and the other staff in uniform who were attending to customers greeted her warmly. She nodded in acknowledgement, returned a few of the greetings, and then turned her attention to Angela. My dear, Angela quickly stood up and responded, Auntie Jennifer asked me to come. She said you might be looking for a hairstylist. Oh, that's right. You must be Angela? She asked with a smile, and Angela nodded. Auntie Jennifer did mention you, Rita, she called, turning to the lady who had welcomed Angela. Yes, madam. Show Angela around and give her something to do. Let's see what she can do. Then, turning back to Angela, she added, Please, my dear, follow her, and she'll give you something to work on. Thank you very much, ma'am, Angela said, bowing slightly in appreciation, but the woman waved it off. Nah, don't worry about it. I needed a hairstylist anyway. We just need to see how you work. Angela followed Rita, who handed her a mannequin with a wig on it, and asked, Do you know how to make a wig? Angela nodded with a smile. Yeah, I can handle that much. Actually, I made all my wigs myself, she added, her smile fading as memories of her luxurious wigs and bags stolen by her sisters-in-law while she was in the hospital came rushing back. Are you all right? Rita noticed the change in her expression and asked, Yeah, I'm good, Angela replied quickly, getting to work. As she did, she silently promised herself that as long as she made enough money to hire another lawyer, she would regain her husband's property. A few minutes later, Angela was engrossed in her work when she heard some familiar voices. Since her head was bent over the mannequin she was working on, she couldn't make out if it was who she thought it was, until she raised her head and looked toward the source of the voices. And there they were, just as she'd suspected. Ada and Dinma, both wearing her wigs and carrying her bags, had walked into the shop. Welcome, ladies. What services can we offer you today? The madam asked, noticing how elegantly they were dressed. As someone who deals in wigs, she recognized the quality of the ones they were wearing. I'd like to get my hands and toenails fixed, Ada said. And I'd love to get a pedicure, please, Dinma added. Right away. Please have a seat, the madam said, then instructed some of her available staff to attend to them. Ada, you need to see the way my husband reacts when I asked him if he wasn't going to take Angela as a second wife again, Dinma began with a little laugh as they took their seats. Ada joined her, laughing along. I told you my plan would work perfectly. That bitch is too dumb. I can't believe she actually thought you were on her side, Ada added, laughing so hard. Angela wanted to make herself known, but something stopped her. Instead, a voice in her mind urged her to record their conversation. So, she discreetly turned on her phone's recorder and slowly gestured for Rita, the lady who had welcomed her, to come closer. Rita furrowed her brows slightly when she saw Angela's signal, but moved over to see what the newcomer needed. Could you please keep this phone very close to these two ladies? I need to record their conversation. I know it may be awkward, but I'll explain everything later, please, Angela whispered urgently. Rita glanced around, clearly confused about why Angela wanted to record the conversation. But seeing the desperate look on Angela's face, she nodded, took the phone, and moved back to her position. She placed the phone close enough to Ada and Dinma to capture their words. But why didn't you let those boys sleep with her? I mean, she was really enjoying the whole thing, Ada asked, staring at Dinma, who shrugged casually. You know, she got drunk and kept mentioning her husband's name, and I kind of decided to go soft on her. Not because of her, though, but because James was a kind man. He was really good to me and my children, especially. So that's why. Besides, I wouldn't have done anything to her if she hadn't seduced my husband, Dinma explained. Ada snorted lightly. But the video did help with the case. At least we were able to buy the lawyer over real quick. But come to think of it, that Mr. Ayomide is a very greedy man. Dinma frowned slightly. Tell me about it. I mean, he took the building James was constructing for Angela in that estate as a birthday gift for her. and also demanded the hostel. I've never seen such a greedy man before. The moment Angela heard about the building her husband had been planning to give her as a birthday gift, a gift she knew nothing about, her eyes widened in shock. She felt as though cold water had been poured over her, and a deep chill washed over her entire body. They say the world is a cruel place, and it's often the people who know you best that will hurt you the most. When Angela felt she had heard enough, she made herself known. She stood up, walking towards them with a smile on her face. That was quite an informative conversation, Ada. And nice to meet you again, Dinma. She greeted them, watching as their expressions froze in shock. What are you doing here? Ada stammered, finally finding her voice. Me? Angela hooked a finger to herself, smiling nonchalantly. Well, since you and your husbands took everything my husband left for me and my girls, I decided to go back to the skill I learned to fend for myself and my girls. But surprisingly, I got to hear some very interesting gossip. Is God not wonderful? Everyone in the salon was staring at them in confusion. Even the madam was curious about what was going on. Auntie Jennifer had briefed her earlier about Angela's situation, but she didn't go into details, just the basics. That Angela had lost both her husband and his properties to her in-laws. What makes you think we were talking about you? Don't get ahead of yourself, Dinma scoffed, clearly uncomfortable being in the same place as Angela. Because I know you were talking about me, Angela replied with a calm smile. After all, you took me out on a drink date and set me up with some men. You were also the one who exposed the video, so I'm pretty sure you were talking about me. She said this and was about to return to her work when she paused, her eyes landing on their wigs. Nice wigs, actually, but that's not how they're worn. If you're going to steal my wigs, at least take care of them. They do cost a fortune, she added, before turning back to her position. Her hands tightened into fists, trying her best to hold back her anger so she wouldn't get fired on her first day. Is this how you train your workers? To insult customers? Ada snapped, standing up in fury, nearly pushing away the lady attending to her. Madam, did you hire your staff to insult your customers? Please, calm down. What's the problem? The big madam stood up and approached Ada in a calm manner. What kind of stupid question is that? Were you not here when your worker was harassing me and my friend? Ada snapped. The big madam smiled and replied, My worker didn't do anything of the sort. We have CCTV cameras here, and we can rewind it for everyone to watch. She only came to greet her in-laws, and I don't see it as an insult. This lady is really troublesome and noisy, one of the customers chipped in. I thought I was the only one who noticed that, another customer added in support. When was she insulted now? In fact, you're the one who's been talking bad about that lady since you stepped in here. I mean, if you can steal everything from your late brother's wife and frame her, what's the difference between you and the devil? With a sister-in-law like this, who needs an enemy? One customer muttered. The murmurs of the customers who had overheard the conversation between Ada and Dinma filled the air. They were instantly filled with shame and anger, and without a word, they quickly paid and left without finishing their pedicures. Once they were gone, Angela stood up and went over to apologize to the madam. I'm really sorry, ma'am, for chasing your customers away. I don't need those kinds of customers anyway. They were too noisy, the madame said with a warm smile. Then, with curiosity, she asked, Are they really your sisters-in-law? Angela looked around and noticed that everyone's attention was on her. They probably wanted to know the full story, and she knew keeping it to herself wouldn't get her the help she needed. So, she decided to share. She first took the recording from Rita, saved it, and thanked her before taking a seat. Then, she began to explain her story to everyone in the salon. She told them about how her husband had died suddenly, how his brothers and their family lawyer had taken everything from her, and how even the bank had seized the remaining property they left for her. She also explained how Dinma and Ada had conspired to get her drunk, set her up with men, and how she had found herself on the internet the next day, humiliated. By the time Angela finished her story, almost everyone in the salon was in tears. They couldn't believe that one person had to endure so much in just a month, yet she hadn't lost her sanity. "How were you able to hold on? If I were in your shoes, I would have attempted murder," one of the customers said, wiping away her tears. Her heart truly went out to Angela. Angela looked at the young lady and smiled softly. "I did try to take my life, but my girls and Auntie Jennifer were there for me. She made me realize that my girls needed me. They would suffer so much if I died and left them behind. I mean, if my husband knew the kind of suffering his death has caused his family, I bet he'd be turning in his grave in regret. But on the other hand, I blame him too. My husband wasn't transparent with me about his wealth. He trusted strangers. If I had known how much he had and where the documents were, I wouldn't have lost everything to his brothers. I guess it's partly my fault for not asking. I never thought he would die and leave me. But that's life. Husbands and wives should always be transparent with each other," the madam muttered slowly as she stood up and walked over to Angela, giving her a light hug. "You've done well by staying strong, my dear. Don't worry. Everything will turn out right very soon." "My husband is a good lawyer." Another customer, a woman in her early 30s, suddenly spoke up, clearly moved by Angela's story. Angela turned towards her, and the woman continued, "I'll talk to him about your case and see if he would be willing to help you." "Really? You'd do that for me?" Angela asked in disbelief. The woman smiled and nodded. "My name is Tina, and here's my card. I run a food restaurant, while my husband owns a law firm. I'll tell him about your case, and he'll definitely help you." Angela felt like she was dreaming. She almost wanted to hug the woman, but held herself back. Instead, she bowed her head in gratitude and took the card from Tina. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Tina. I don't know how to repay you for this." Tina laughed lightly. "The case hasn't even been won yet. I've just offered to help. Just give me your number, and I'll call you tonight." "Chai! Madam, you try. Oh, God bless you," one of the customers added, impressed by Tina's kindness. People joined in thanking Tina, and Angela couldn't be more grateful. It felt as though God was finally coming to her aid. Ada and Dinma couldn't find peace even as they left the salon. They kept having mixed feelings, like something was about to go wrong. They stopped at a bar to have drinks together, this time lowering their voices when speaking. "What do you think we should do?" Dinma asked, taking a sip of her drink. Ada let out a frustrated sigh. "Why was that witch there of all places? Do you think she recorded our conversation?" "I hope she didn't, because if she did, it won't be good for us," Dinma replied, with a heavy sigh. If things went bad, their husbands wouldn't take it lightly. Remember what that woman said about the CCTV cameras. If what she said is true, then we're in big trouble. After thinking for a moment, Ada shook her head and said, "We need to make sure that bitch doesn't say a word. Whether she recorded the conversation or not, we have to ensure she keeps quiet." Dinma furrowed her brows slightly. Her curiosity piqued. "How do you plan to do that? What's your idea?" Ada glanced around for a moment, then beckoned Dinma to come closer. When she did, Ada whispered something in her ear that made Dinma gasp in fear. "Ah! Shh! Why are you screaming?" Ada glared at her, and Dinma swallowed hard. "What do you mean by kidnapping her daughters? Isn't that a huge crime?" Dinma asked, her voice shaking in fear. Ada shrugged nonchalantly. Do you have a better idea? No, but I think kidnapping her children is going to get us into a whole lot of trouble, Dinma said, shaking her head. Then you shouldn't have run your mouth like that in public, Ada snapped. Don't blame me. How was I supposed to know she'd be there of all places? And I wasn't the only one who said something. Dinma defended herself. Listen, Dinma, the kidnappers won't hurt her kids. We just want to use them to threaten her, make her back off, and hand over any evidence she has. That's all. It won't be that bad. But what if she involves the police? Dinma asked hesitantly, fear creeping into her voice. Ada frowned, shaking her head. It won't get to that. She won't go to the police. She wouldn't risk anything happening to her children. Okay, I have an idea, Dinma said after a pause. Let's lie low for now. If Angela tries anything funny, then maybe we can consider this kidnapping plan of yours. But I still don't think it's a good idea. 2 days later, Angela took a break from work during her lunch hour to visit Tina's husband. Tina had called her the previous night to book the appointment, and with the address she provided, it wasn't hard for Angela to locate the place. They were to meet at Open Place Restaurant, and by the time Angela arrived, Tina's husband was already seated and had ordered his meal. You must be Madam Tina's husband? She asked politely as she approached the fair-skinned man in a suit. He looked up and gave her a gentle smile. Yes, please have a seat. Angela nodded and sat down. Sorry I'm late, she apologized. I was attending to a customer and couldn't leave until I was done. The man shook his head. That's not a problem. I came earlier because I was hungry. He smiled. So, what would you like? I've already ordered. Anything is fine, Angela replied, taking a moment to observe him. He appeared to be in his late 30s, just like her husband. He was good-looking, and from his calm and polite demeanor, Angela could tell he was a decent man. Then I'll order the same thing I got for myself. Mrs. James, right? He asked, raising his head from the menu he was looking at. Yes, Mrs. James, Angela replied, nodding. My name is Barrister John, the man began, after signaling the waiter to place another order for her. My wife briefed me on your case last night. It was quite pitiful, so I wanted to meet you personally and see how I can help. I really appreciate you and your wife trying to help me out, Angela said with a sad smile. Honestly, I knew I had to fight back, but I didn't expect help to come this soon. Barrister John smiled gently and leaned back thoughtfully. It's nothing. From what my wife told me about the lawyer claiming to have all the documents, I think that's a lie. Angela furrowed her brows slightly. What do you mean? Barrister John leaned slightly forward, lowering his voice. What I mean is this. Your husband was a very successful businessman. I don't believe he would have handed over all his property to a stranger, even if he trusted the person. You may not know it, but I strongly believe he had copies, maybe even originals, of those documents hidden somewhere. He paused briefly before continuing. Even if he wanted his lawyer to handle the documents, it would have been photocopies, not the originals. No man in his right mind would hand over everything he worked for to someone else without keeping something for himself. So, I want you to think really hard. Where do you believe your husband might have hidden those documents? Angela fell silent, her thoughts racing. What he said made a lot of sense. James wasn't a fool. He wouldn't have entrusted all his wealth to a stranger without some sort of backup plan. She was still deep in thought when the waiter arrived with their food. They ate in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. After eating for a few moments, Angela dropped her spoon and spoke up. If what you said is true, then the documents might still be lying somewhere around the house. But the problem is, the bank has already confiscated the building, so I no longer have access to it. I don't think the documents are in the house, Barrister John said, wiping his lips with a serviette. Your husband must have kept them in a bank or somewhere more secure. But we'll take our time to find them. First, I need to reopen the case. My wife mentioned you have some sort of recording from your in-laws? Oh yes, Angela replied, reaching into her bag for her phone. I recorded it on my phone, but I don't know if it will be of much help. She handed the phone to Barrister John, who played the recording and listened silently. When it ended, he nodded with a slight smile. This won't hold much weight in court since it was obtained improperly, he said, but it can still help us reopen the case. More importantly, we can use it to put pressure on them, maybe even provoke a mistake, while we work on finding the original documents. Angela let out a deep sigh of relief. Thank you so much, Barrister. I'm really grateful, but... Her expression shifted suddenly, and she slowly bit her lip in hesitation. Barrister John raised his brows, slightly confused. But what? The payment? She said quietly. I might not have enough money to pay you right now, but I promise I'll make sure to pay once I gather enough. Her tone was desperate, almost pleading. The man chuckled softly. Don't worry about the payment for now. My wife asked me to help you, and that's exactly what I'm doing. When we win the case, you can pay me whatever you like. But for now, let's focus on winning. Angela clasped her hands together in gratitude. May God bless you and your wife 100-fold. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure, Barrister John replied with a warm smile. Then he checked his watch. I need to be on my way now. I have to serve Mr. Ayomide the court papers before heading back to my firm. Do you know Mr. Ayomide? Angela asked. Barrister John shook his head. I've heard of him, but I haven't met him personally. That's why I'm heading to his firm now. I want to meet him face to face. Angela nodded and picked up her bag. In that case, I'll keep in touch. If I remember anything about where my husband might have kept the documents, I'll let you know. Barrister John settled the bill and they left the restaurant together. On their way out, he offered Angela a ride back to her workplace, but she politely declined, claiming she needed to stop by the market first. It wasn't because she thought Barrister John had any romantic interest in her. He had been nothing but professional. But Angela was cautious. She didn't want to attract any more scandal or gossip, especially involving the people who were trying to help her. So while Barrister John drove off in his car, Angela quietly flagged down a taxi and headed back to her shop. I'd like to see Mr. Ayomide, please. Is he in? Barrister John asked the secretary at the reception. Do you have an appointment with him, sir? She replied in a professional tone. No, but I have a letter from the court for him. It's quite urgent. All right, one moment, please, the secretary said, then made a phone call. After a brief exchange, she hung up and pointed down the hallway. You can go straight ahead. It's the first office on your left. Thank you, Barrister John said with a polite smile before walking in the direction she indicated. It wasn't as if he didn't have other cases demanding his attention, but ever since his wife asked him to help that poor widow, the case had weighed heavily on his heart. Meeting Angela in person only deepened that feeling. He could see the pain behind her calm demeanor, and if there was any way he could help lighten her burden, even just a little, he was determined to do it. He knocked twice on the door, and a voice called out, "Come in!" Barrister John opened the door and stepped inside. Mr. Ayomide looked up from his laptop, raising his eyebrows in slight surprise at the visitor. Though they had never spoken before, he recognized Barrister John immediately. His reputation preceded him, known as a relentless lawyer who had never lost a case and who was fiercely committed to justice. "To what do I owe this visit, Mr. Barrister?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. "Hello to you too, Mr. Aomide," Barrister John replied with his usual calm smile as he took a seat across from him. "I won't take much of your time since we're both busy men. So here." He opened his bag, pulled out a sealed envelope, and handed it over. "This is a letter from the court." Mr. Aomide narrowed his eyes slightly as he took the letter from Barrister John and opened it. "I believe you know my client, Mrs. Angela James," Barrister John began in a calm voice. "She reached out to me seeking redress for her case because she suspects foul play in how her husband's possessions were taken from her by her trusted family lawyer and in-laws." If Mr. Aomide was shocked or worried by the letter or Barrister John's words, he didn't show it. His expression remained steady as he folded the letter and placed it on his desk before replying, "I really don't see how this concerns me. All I did was distribute her husband's property according to what was written in his will." Barrister John chuckled lightly at his response. "So, you're telling me that Mr. James wrote in his will that the building he was going to gift his wife for her birthday should be handed over to you, his lawyer, and that the hostel he built with his own money should also be given to you, leaving his wife and kids to suffer? Come on, even a child wouldn't believe such nonsense." A complicated expression flickered across Mr. Aomide's face as he tried to process how Barrister John had found out about all these details, especially when he had specifically told Mr. Henry to keep his pay secret. This is deep trouble, he thought inwardly, but managed to maintain his composure.